and radio host, but she's much more than that. She's a very good friend of mine, and she will be central to Moats America when we can launch it. And in preparation for that, she has been digging away, mining the Twitter files, which most of us, let's face it, don't have the time to do. Some don't have the inclination. I have the inclination, but not the time. Farron had both, and I'm glad she's joined us now to tell us about one or two of the nuggets that she has found there. Farron, welcome back, as always, to the mother of all talk shows. These Twitter files that Matt Taibbi and others are writing up, with the cooperation, of course, of Elon Musk, the new owner of Twitter, who's opened the books, basically, though I'm sure not entirely all of them, at least yet. And what we're finding in these books is pretty horrifying, isn't it?
You know, I would say that, George. I mean, but at the same time, it's horrifying, but it's not something that we didn't think that we would see. You know, basically censorship coming from all angles, you know, from the Hunter Biden laptop story to even media having a hand in it, to even all the way up into the upper echelons of the FBI. So it's nothing really surprising that we're seeing. However, one thing that we are seeing here, there's a group of creators and journalists here in the United States that are starting to actually see censorship again on Twitter under the direction of Elon Musk. It's the latest thing that's happening. You're having a number of creators that are being censored for frivolous reasons, especially one of them in particular. It is an activist, a survivor activist of human trafficking, who is going on the rampage on Twitter and banning anybody that basically asks her questions about her life story. She goes by the name of Eliza Blue, and she became prominent on the scene because of the Twitter files, particularly when it came to child sex trafficking or child porn that was found on Twitter. You had a case a few years ago of a John Doe, where it was a 13-year-old, where his images were put online via Twitter. They tried to appeal it to take it down, and he was exploited, and Twitter came back with the answer of, we're not going to take it down. So she was very instrumental in helping Elon Musk see a lot of that, especially in these Twitter spaces. But now you have a number of people that have been asking about her past, particularly that she's appeared in rap music videos in scantily outfits, that she goes by a number of different names from her past, that she has, as you could say in the United States, as we say here, like grifting for money for certain things. So people called into question on Twitter, you know, hey, what's this about? Could you clarify this? And she immediately went on the rampage. She obviously took it to Twitter. They've started banning accounts. They ban any time you put out the music video that she happens to appear in. They take it down. They either ban you. So this is something that's starting. It's starting small, George. But the fact that nobody in the mainstream media here in the United States is picking this up is honestly shocking.
See the faces.
Because you're having basically a meet the new boss, same as the old boss kind of situation going on with Twitter right now.
Well, that's certainly
only
true
shadow
in my
imagery,
case.
but
My,
seems to be some
my
imagery there, but
case
look at all the
against them
faces.
in the Irish courts is proceeding. It will reach a very important juncture in February, just a few weeks from now, in mid-February. I have to go and swear an affidavit and so on. And we get no answers and certainly no action from Twitter, though what their defense is going to be now is almost impossible to discern, because Elon Musk has himself revealed the massive corruption in the relationship between Twitter at the top before he arrived and the deep state in the United States and in other countries. So I'm not sure how they're going to defend my case. I might have to settle for a fleet of Teslas, not the Mr. and Mrs. 2 that I was originally looking for. But the censorship has eased in some regards, but has tightened in others, and in still others, it's neither here nor there. So our friend Garland Nixon is banned today, banned tomorrow, back again the next day, back for another day, banned again. ditto Scott Ritter and many others. It's as if there's not a steady hand on the tiller. Perhaps when Musk's there, things get better. When he turns his mind to his other businesses or his 9 children, perhaps the cat's away, the mice start to play again. What's your take on that?
Well, that's just the thing, George, and that's why I think the mainstream media really isn't touching it, especially the likes of like Fox News, who was like glorifying it. It was like the second coming of Jesus for when he took over Twitter. And now you see that like nobody is touching this censorship issue, and it basically is again like that meet the new boss, same as the old boss situation, where if you happen to be close to the CEO or close to the manager, you're able to get certain things done the way you see fit. If and that's the one thing that a lot of people that are really free speech fighters here, including, those that are very pro Julian Assange, which this activist actually, who's now going on and banning everybody, she actually showed up at Julian Assange rallies and was saying that she was pro free speech. And now it's turned around to where, oh, wait, if I don't like something that you say about me, I can get you banned. Or if you put out a video about me, I can get you banned. And that's where a lot of these smaller creators, even some large ones too, that have 1.4 million followers, like a kid named The Quartering, banned because they reposted this stuff. And people are asking and shaking their heads like, wait a minute, Elon, weren't you the beacon of free speech saying that how everybody had a voice in all of this? And now the fact that somebody that's tied to you or that you have a close relationship with, now they can go on the rampage and start banning people, it doesn't make sense. And that's where, again, so the likes of like a Fox News or OAN or the Blaze or all these other Republican outlets that should be picking up on this aren't even touching it, because I think a lot of it is that they don't want to get Elon upset or they don't want to make anybody mad, or it's kind of that oh, we don't want to get censored too. And so really, what's the difference between Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk at this point? And a lot of people, a lot of haters will say like, oh well, they're going after Elon Musk. That's why this is all happening. Nobody they want to everybody's on the rampage to go against Elon Musk. Well, you said it was going to be totally different when you signed on. I get that sometimes writing code takes a bit of time in the algorithm. He even said that he would probably have to blow up the algorithm because it was so inundated with all these restrictions. However, we're starting to see the same things again, and it's like, and mind you, this story of this activist and her past, whatever it may be, they're hiding it the same way they did the Hunter Biden laptop story. And that's one of the things that this small group of both people on the right and the left are like, what's going on here? We need answers, and we're not getting any.
Fascinating. Finally, Farron, speaking of that kind of thing, amazingly, maybe this only happens in America, it wouldn't happen here, the convicted child trafficker and abuser Ghislaine Maxwell gave an interview on British television, well, internet television owned by Rupert Murdoch, Talk TV. I wasn't sure how she managed to do that and what the import of what she had to say was. My heart breaks for her as a vegan in the difficult dietary situation in the pen. But it seemed like her main purpose was to give a free pass, a get out of jail card, metaphorically, to Prince Andrew. What was your take on all that?
Is this one here?
I think a lot of people here in the United States,
tongue sticking out
you
here.
have people that are either completely obsessed with the monarch, whether in regards to the whole Meghan Markle, Harry situation, but then looking at this instance, like with Prince Andrew, as you say, and Ghislaine Maxwell saying that she wanted to do that. I mean, Americans are looking at this like, wait a minute, there's so many Americans still here that have questions about Epstein Island. What was going on with that? But I think more of the biggest bombshell is that Ghislaine Maxwell was basically saying that she thinks that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. You have a lot of Americans that still want to ask and have questions answered, but we're just not getting those answers. And I think Americans are at a point now where when we don't get answers from our government and it's just sit down, hush, hush, we're going to take it from here, you have a lot of Americans now that are just really fed up, to be frank. You're talking to the one and only Jimmy Dore, Chicago's very own. I'm a Chicagoan myself. And, when you don't get these answers, that's when you have to take it to the streets. And that's where I think a lot of people, we have this big anti-war rally coming up here in February, which I'll be at here in DC. But I don't even think it's also anti-war. I think it's going to be anti-censorship, anti a bunch of other different things, because Americans just aren't getting answers, and we're being told to sit down and be quiet. And again, the big oligarchs here, they say that there's Russian oligarchs. We got oligarchs right here too, baby. And they're telling us that, that they know better than we do. So just, take it or leave it. And Americans are just fed up, really.
Well, Jimmy was not so much on fire this evening as going nuclear, and he's already raging against the war machine, and I'll be there in spirit with you at the Lincoln Memorial. Thank you, Farron.
Amazing.
Stay in touch. Keep mining those Twitter files for us, because we'll need you. They're not even mentioning Bernie Sanders by name in the opinion polls. You're asked, would you vote for Joe Biden? Tick or not. Elizabeth Warren? Tick or not. The rest of the donkey derby? Tick or not. And then a last category, other. And other wins every time. Every newspaper article I read, every broadcast I see, the only man that can defeat Donald Trump is being airbrushed from the political picture. I will be talking about politics here in London, here in Britain, because on Wednesday, Theresa May is no more. And I wanted to pay tribute to her achievements. Well, that's that then. Her achievements are nil. She is the worst, most ineffectual, most robotic Prime Minister that Britain has ever had, and that's saying something. She makes John Major look charismatic. She makes Gordon Brown look like Aristotle and Cicero rolled into one. She's not a person. She's a machine. She's artificial intelligence that turned out to be, frankly, stupid. She will be remembered for only two things. One, calling a general election when she already had a parliamentary majority in the hope of getting a bigger one and losing the one that she had. And the other will frankly be her dancing moves. The dancing queen has met her Waterloo, for you ABBA fans out there. And she'll be gone by Wednesday. And Boris Johnson will be in by Wednesday afternoon. And an entire new cabinet will be sworn in the hours and days thereafter. A new Chancellor of the Exchequer, that is, for international viewers, the man that counts the money, will be in place immediately, because the incumbent has just declared a first on British television. The most important minister in the government, after the PM herself, has just declared on television that he'll be resigning before he can be sacked. Mr. Johnson's rival, Jeremy Hunt, whose blows have been low struck indeed, cannot possibly be long for the British Foreign Office, and I, for one, sing hallelujah. He's a tailor's dummy, the kind you see in Burton's shop window. A man with no knowledge of the international political scene and no communications ability to talk about it. But Boris Johnson was clever, was cleverer than Donald Trump. He can speak Latin. Donald Trump can't even speak English. Boris Johnson is a very dangerous man. And if he attempts to lash Britain ever tighter to the Donald Trump White House, we are in serious trouble in this world. And it's up to us in Britain and those in the United States to seize this moment to do something about it. For the next 3 hours, I'll be talking and listening to you, to your calls, reading out your tweets, and taking your Skype calls. It's going to be the mother of all talk shows. That, I promise you. This is a first. From Mississippi, Uruguay, Tokyo, Thailand, and Turkey. That's the hellos that are just flooding in, as are the tweets. Here's one from Jane A. GG, looking very cool and suave this evening. Thank you, dear Jane. It's a different jacket, not the same one as last week, that excited so much attention. Mungo's mouthpiece says they want a war. They don't give a flying fig for us or the planet. They only want... That's a good point, you know, Mungo. That is a really good point. They're all endlessly prattling about global warming and climate catastrophe, extinction rebellion. If there's a war with Iran, there might not be a planet to save in the first place. And at the very least, it's going to get a whole lot hotter. So, Mongo's mouthpiece says they want to usher in a new world order. Who are they? The globalists. The ones who want a world of masters and slaves. Corporations ruling, the rest with nothing. The world owned by a handful of people. Haven't we got that already? Scott Kilgore says, alas, the hardcore flag-waving Americans will be more than willing to send their sons and daughters to their peril. Well, I'm afraid there are a few like that in Britain too, but not as many as there used to be. Be sure Britain will not be sending any soldiers into Iran. They'll be sending sailors in peril of their lives. They'll be sending airmen and women in peril of their lives. Our depleted naval assets, our depleted air assets, and the precious human beings who operate them will be the people whose blood will be shed. Certainly not the politicians in Westminster. Liam Murphy says, oh my God, the sweeping, unfounded statements you make almost make Boris Johnson sound like an intellectual heavyweight. Keep talking like an ill-informed student and keep the Tories in, which you and others do. Are you on the Conservative Central Office's payroll? No, I'm not, Liam, but thanks for watching and listening anyway. Fraser Buchanan says, why are the Brits still the lapdog of the USA establishment? Haven't we learned from the gallivanting in Iraq? Best wishes from Canada. Well, Fraser, we haven't learned from Iraq. We haven't learned from Afghanistan. We haven't learned from Libya, from Syria, from Yemen. Now, you know there's an old song, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 5 times, 5 times shame on me. We have a media which talks about this crisis as if none of the other crises ever happened or ever ended so catastrophically, or rather not ended, continued so catastrophically. I've got a call from Nottingham in England. Yes, caller, go ahead.
Hello, George. How are you, comrade?
I'm very good. Nice to hear from you, sir. What's your name?
Oh, God bless. It's Paul.
Thanks, Paul. I remember you well, yes.
You do? When you came to Nottingham, brother, I've seen you there with Gayatri, your,
yes, I remember it well.
Wonderful wife.
I remember
Absolutely
it well.
wonderful.
Thank
Absolutely
you.
loved your speech together with Ken Livingstone.
Ken Livingstone, yeah.
You know, George, I'm absolutely shocked, you know, the way this, this is all panning out, you know, with this threat against Iran. You can see that it's clearly a false flag, you know, that's orchestrated clearly by the CIA. The Mossad, the Israelis are in there. They're the ones at the top of this tower of evil that's stoking it up. Have we not had enough, George, of the you know, the destruction that they've caused across the Middle East, the genocide that we've seen in Iraq, over 1 million dead, in Syria, 500,000 dead. You know, I'm very, very, you know, very boiling with anger, George, when I see it. And when you look at the BBC, what a mouthpiece of propaganda that we have to listen to every single day. That's why
We have to pay for it
to
too.
RT, George.
We have to. We'll go to jail if we don't pay for it. I only differ with you in this regard, Paul. I don't believe that Israel is at the top of this tree. The United States and its monkey, the British government, are at the top of the tree. Israel works
Really, George?
for
Yeah.
imperialism, not imperialism working for Israel. Having said that,
Well-
I did see some comments from Donald Trump today that appeared to suggest that he believes he's the president of Israel. Presumably the United States and Israel. Look him up. They're just today. He was talking about Ilham Omar, that we'll be talking about later in the show. But he was talking. He said, "I gave Jerusalem as capital of Israel. I gave the Golan Heights to Israel." He was talking
Unbelievable,
as
George.
if they were one country, and he was the president of both of them.
This is the language of a fascist dictator, George, isn't it? Isn't this precisely what the Nazis did, you know, during the Second World War? You know, what was the Nuremberg trials all about, George? It was about putting, you know, Nazi war criminals on trial for what? Precisely
No, I don't-
for what? For wars of aggression, George.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
wars of
for,
aggression.
wars of aggression.
The Nuremberg.
Against peace.
Yeah, the Nuremberg Tribunal established wars of aggression as the ultimate crime, and no one has paid for the wars of aggression against Iraq, against Afghanistan, against Libya, against Syria. No one has paid for those wars of aggression, wars of choice,
Exactly.
wars of aggression. But no,
Yes.
Trump will only be a Nazi dictator if he succeeds in closing down the courts, cancelling the elections, appointing himself the president for life, and I think we're a very, very long way short of that. So I don't
Well,
believe that he's a Nazi
fair enough,
dictator.
George. I accept
Yeah.
that point. But the longer we have a Trump kind of nutcase in power in the United States of America, we're more likely we're going in that direction, George.
Mind you, I'll tell you what,
with
Paul.
the disgusting assault on you know, on the congresswomen like Ilan
It was, and he knew that he had overstepped even his mark, because he tried the next day to say that he didn't like it, even though it was his daughter that was leading the chant, and even though he stood like a big dummy for 13 seconds, which is a long time. If I now stood silent for the next 13 seconds, you would know just how long that is in broadcast time. And he allowed them to chant, to froth, to foam, to drag their knuckles. I was just waiting for Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson and the Confederate flag to be unfurled in the corner. Paul, thanks very much for that call, my friend. Here's a tweet from my old friend Marie McFarlane. Hi, Marie. Ready for some truth, ready for some facts, and intelligent, non-censored, authentic discussions for and by the people. Tune in to the mother of all talk shows. Thanks, Marie. Let's hear from Helen in Cornwall, again in England. Go ahead, Helen.
Hello, can you hear me, George? Hello,
Very
can you hear me?
clearly, the whole world's listening.
Hello, thank you for taking my call. I love your show, George, and you
Thanks.
do wonderful commentary. I'm ringing to ask you, can we talk a little bit? I know the Iran situation is a crisis and it's very worrying, but can we discuss, if possible, I'm very worried about what's going on in Cyprus. People in Cyprus, northern and southern Cyprus, they want to live peacefully, basically. And unfortunately, we've got the provocations of the Turkish government run by Erdogan, who is constantly threatening possibly another invasion. And, you know, hopefully, God forbid, it won't be. But on yesterday's day of the anniversary of the invasion of Cyprus, he threatened again.
Well, Helen, I was actually here in London on holiday in the week of the Turkish invasion of Cyprus, and I went on the demonstration that Saturday. to Hyde Park protesting against it. And of course, I oppose still the Turkish invasion of Cyprus and the division of the island and the partition of people who had lived together for a very long time. And I think now that oil and gas have been discovered off the coast of Cyprus, a political solution to the Cyprus question is more pressing even than it has been for these last 40 years or more. So the call that you make, I absolutely acknowledge, but at the risk of making you annoyed, I've got to point out something that has changed. For a very long time, decades, it was the Turkish Cypriots who were refusing to end the partition and to reunify the island. But in recent years, it is the Greek Cypriot government that has refused those possible rapprochements. And so both sides have got to get their act together. Don't you agree?
Yes, I do agree.
So we got to, it was 1974, right? So this is the 45th anniversary.
Yes.
Wow. 45th anniversary. And
But why?
I remember that demonstration like it was yesterday. There you go. Go on, Helen.
Why do you think Erdogan is constantly threatening? And why do you? It's not helping the situation.
No.
It's very concerning.
Erdogan has gone from a policy of no quarrels with the neighbours to quarrels with all the neighbours, fights with all the neighbours, wars with all the neighbours, certainly with Syria and with Iraq, and with these threats also of war with Cyprus. Now, both sides of the border, of the division, the completely unnatural partition of a small island, have got to get their act together. Helen, thanks very much indeed for that call. Some comments from Facebook and YouTube. Ash Beg says, Iraq War Mark II. War will the Americans never learn from their failed history of aggressions. Don't forget also that you can send Skype messages. You can send them in, by the way, at any time in the week, and we'll play them out. The Skype address is ggmotes. So if you fancy seeing yourself as well as hearing yourself on the mother of all talk shows, that's what to do. Send us a Skype message, ggmotes. That's ggmoats. And here's the man without whom the news wouldn't be the news. Here's Adam.
Lovely
Ask Adam, the cleverest man in England. For international viewers, there won't be many cleverer men in your country either. Adam is a polymath, a man who can talk about everything from ABBA and King Crimson to the intricate politics of the southeast of Asia, the northeast of Asia, the North Africa, Middle East region, Britain and the United States. Welcome back, Adam. Have you got a question, by the way? Hashtag it, Ask Adam. And there are some admirers who are even hashtagging Ask Adam out. So you never know. As we say in Glasgow, you might get a lumber by the end of the night. I've got loads of tweets and loads of calls waiting, Adam. But let's just set the scene. Britain will have a new Prime Minister on Wednesday afternoon. Theresa May will face Prime Minister's questions for the last time at midday on Wednesday, and at 12:30 she will set off for the palace. Philip Hammond, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, has said that he'll meet her on the way out and hand her his resignation because he knows that he's for the off. His tea is out, as we say in Glasgow. So we'll be filling not one but two and maybe many more posts on Wednesday afternoon. How does that scene look to you?
Well, it's going to be the spring cleaning, and before we get to that, we can just sort of set the scene for her final Prime Minister's question time. I'm sure it's available online, so I do recommend watching it. The previous two debates in which she lost her attempt to get her European withdrawal bill, that's really just a new European treaty, through the House of Commons. And I had trouble at one point determining which side of the House were the government and which were the opposition, because they were all
They
lining up.
looked from pig to man and man to pig.
Quite right. They were all opposing her. We're going to see something very different on Wednesday. It's going to be a cavalcade of hypocrisy where, as you say, the least effective and most ineffectual Prime Minister in living memory, if not in the memory of the dead, they're going to be giving all sorts of praise to her, and it's going to be quite morose.
Well, they come here not to bury, but to praise her.
Indeed.
In her last hours.
Quite right. So we're going to
You know
see
what was
a lot
said
of that.
when they say he was great, I wasn't around, but when Pitt was succeeded by an unknown man called Addington, they said Pitt is to Addington as London is to Paddington. Paddington being a tiny area not far actually from here. London is to Paddington. David Cameron was no giant, but Theresa May was an exceedingly small Prime Minister, wasn't she?
Absolutely. She was the world's sort of most annoying bookmark, page holder, paperweight, call her what you will, but she literally got nothing done. Absolutely nothing. Well, I take that back. She provoked Russia, she provoked China, she provoked Iran, she provoked the United
She lost
States.
us a lot of friends, yeah.
How to lose friends and influence nothing is really...
That's an overarching question I have, Adam. If you're leaving the European Union, and I'm glad that we are,
Yeah.
it's incumbent on you, surely, to make as many new friends in the world or remake old acquaintances as possible, unless you want to be entirely friendless.
Well,
there's a football team called Millwall, and they sing, we are Millwall, no one likes us, we don't care. That's almost become the British national anthem.
Well, it certainly should be played at her retirement party at 10 Downing Street, because she had one job, literally one job, which is, as you say, prepare free trading agreements with the world outside of Europe. To say to China, to the United States, to Canada, to Pakistan, to India, to ASEAN, to everyone, to say the doors of commerce in Britain are open. Come on in. We want to do business. We want to make friends. We want to develop connectivity. And instead, she just went around with her grimacing demeanour, dancing her way into the oblivion that she now finds herself.
She was definitely grim, I must say. Kieran's on the line. Kieran, welcome.
George, good afternoon, or good evening, how are you?
Very well, nice to hear from you, sir. What would you like to say?
Absolute honour to speak to you.
Thank you, sir.
Listen, just very quickly, sorry, I'm hearing my voice down the phone here repeating back to me. Do you know what? You started your show talking about Donald Trump, and I'm really uncomfortable about the things you said, the negative attitude, which is a fair point, but it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. He's a fascist, he's a racist, he's anti-immigrant, he's anti-Mexican, that kind of thing.
Well, I contradicted that he was a fascist.
No, but I mean,
He's not a
even
fascist.
how you talked about him, you said that you didn't like him. Oh, that was the impression that I got.
Was that a surprise to you that I don't like him?
No, it's not, and I'm not a fan of Trump either, but I'm a fan of fairness. And I'm a fan of, listen, I remember you, I watched on YouTube about 2-3 years ago, you debating Christopher Hitchens.
Yeah.
And it was a vicious, virile, nasty, in inverted commas, debate.
It was Ali versus Frazier. It was the thriller and Manila.
It was a fair fight, you used facts, and when you lashed him with your tongue, it was with the truth, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Listen, you paid the price for that tweet, was it a tweet you sent on with Talk Sport? And I saw your interview or your debate with Alan Sugar as well. And as soon as he got on the air, you stated facts about the flags, that kind of thing. As soon as he got his chance, the first thing he said, I think was, from memory, George Galloway is an anti-Semitic so-and-so. And that's what's happening. And when I hear you saying that kind of thing, and BBC and CNN kind of thing...
Kieran, let me stop you and I'll let you back in.
Yeah.
You see, there are things that simply cannot be denied. If you encourage, for 13 seconds of your silence, tens of thousands of people to chant, send them back, about 4 black American citizens.
You better believe that if it was 4 white women from Eastern Europe, he would be saying the same thing. Listen, look, you can say that, right? And you can say, well, that proves he's a racist. I could also say, was not only in the last few months that he had loads of black people in the Oval Office, that Obama and previous administrations let these people rot in jail for fairly minimal drug crimes and that kind of thing, simply because of the third strike.
Kieran, I wouldn't like you to have the misapprehension that I in any way hold any candles for Barack Obama. And as I said,
Right.
3 years ago, I'm not happy that Donald Trump is the president of the United States, but I'm very, very happy that Hillary Clinton isn't. Let's hear what Adam has to say. Let's take Adam's point of view. Adam.
Well, it was very interesting because this week people on all sides were moralizing, some were even philosophizing, because after all, we are all philosophers. Some of our philosophy just is more interesting than others, said Plato to the wall. Some people get that. But what I saw is that there were essentially... It wasn't Ali versus Frazier because there was some elegance to that, but it was a bit of a street fight, a bit of a cockfight, a bit of a bear baiting, because Trump likes to get down and nasty, and those 4, I call them the gang of 4, they like to get nasty too. Both of them, when you combine them, are as nasty as they want to be, whether on Twitter, whether in front of a camera. I wish America had a parliamentary system, because that would be very interesting, seeing Trump at one dispatch box and then Cortez and Omar and the others on the other. That would be fireworks. It would be wonderful television and radio as well. But the way I saw it is that if you go into politics, you have to be able to dish it out and take it. It's a very rough business. It's not a business for the lighthearted.
But send them back has a very different connotation. He wasn't saying kick them out of the Congress. He wasn't saying vote them down. He was saying send American citizens back. That's a qualitatively different thing.
Well, it is an insult, and it's a big one, but the way I see it is that however low one side goes, the other side's going to go lower, and that literally, and I don't think I'm the only one, I'm comfortably numb. Nothing that anyone in US politics in particular, but UK politics too, nothing can shock me anymore. Absolutely nothing.
Well, I'll tell you what, if the Democrats were to gather in a hall and start chanting about sending Trump's wife back. Although, actually, from what I hear, she'd probably be quite happy to go back. Last word to you, Kieran.
Yeah, George, I tell you, yeah, you're probably right. Listen, just one quick point and one quick question. Listen, I think myself that wasn't aimed at the 4 of them. It was aimed at Ilhan Omar, okay? That's what I think it was aimed at. But he couldn't single her out, because then he would have been told, you are racist. The only foreign-born national American citizen you're picking on. So I think it was at her, but he couldn't pick it out.
But what has he got, Kieran? What has he got against her? That she supports Palestine and wants that it shouldn't be illegal to boycott Israeli goods.
Yeah. And I agree with that.
That's what he's got against her, because
he
thinks he's the president of Israel also.
Yeah, and look, I'm not saying that he's right. I don't agree with a lot of what he said. Last thing, here's dirty politics. Do you genuinely think that when AOC went down to those camps, those concentration camps in air quotes, that she was shouted at and abused by guards? I genuinely don't. Who questioned her on it? Who said, right, who was it, who were they? Because if they really did this, they shouldn't be working here, we'll get them sacked. That's my point.
Okay, well, I can't answer it. I have no idea. But I've no doubt our American listeners are already reaching for their telephones right now. Kieran, been a pleasure disagreeing with you. Thank you very much indeed for that. It's going to be a bruising presidential race, isn't it?
I think the level of brutality that we're seeing is essentially going to be bigger than what we've seen before, but there's a big qualification to that. Behind the scenes, people at dinners, at barbecues, at bars, at sports games, they're saying the same things in private that now Trump and his chief opponents, the Gang of Four, are saying in public. So as I said previously to you on one of our previous exchanges, Donald Trump is the Johnny Rotten of politics. He's acting very rotten, but he's merely holding a mirror up to society and reflecting the nastiness that previously wasn't non-existent but was suppressed. And I think that's the big takeaway.
I was once sat, I've broadcast about this before, I was once sat in a breakfast hall in an American hotel on a speaking tour of the United States. And there were a large group of what the Americans called seniors, pensioners we call them. They must have been on some jaunt and they were staying there, and they'd all come down to breakfast together. There was a good 20, 25 of them. And it was before Barack Obama was elected. And they were talking of Obama in the most racialized terms I personally had ever heard such a large group of people ever do. And so I was in no doubt then that the divisions in the United States, and there are many, between states, between regions, between rich and poor especially, between the 70, 80 million Americans who don't even have health insurance, to the majority of Americans who could not survive a $3,000 emergency, who literally would go to the wall if such an emergency were to arise. The United States history as a slave-owning and operating nation and so on, these multiple fractures in American society could very well erupt. I mean, I've been saying for a while, if they try and impeach Donald Trump, you could actually see people taking up arms in the United States.
I don't doubt that. I think that what a lot of people misread about Trump is that how much is he actually putting the boiling liquid back down into the sewer? How much is he actually suppressing, in the sense that he's letting people sublimate it? Instead of shooting someone, God forbid, instead of rabble-rousing on the street, they can go to a highly secure Donald Trump rally or go to some chat box on one of the pro-Donald Trump social media pages and vent their views there. If Trump were to exit his presidency in, how shall we call it, an unnatural way, I think all of those tendencies that you mentioned would boil over, because we have to remember, every big country is going to have more diversity and more division, more differences than a small country, but the United States is quite peculiar, because China, huge country, very centralized system. Russia, it's a giant country, but fewer and fewer people actually live in it. The United States is both very populous and even legalistically very distinct. Every state has quite a bit of sovereignty. Then there's a federal government, and in fact the Civil War was fought over who has the lion's share of power. So you have a large population in a geographically, topographically diverse place, and the very legal system actually, it accentuates the differences. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing in terms of the constitutional sense, but as the population of the US grows, a lot of these trends are going to be amplified and the divisions will become more sharp.
He chose North Carolina to do this, formerly Klan's land.
Yes.
In fact, the very town that he chose, in which the rally was held, was formerly, perhaps even still to some extent, a real stronghold of the very worst white supremacist instincts in the United States. Well, the first hour is almost by. The good news is that there are two more